There comes a moment in every journey where you ask yourself a different kind of question, not what have I built, but what can I enable, not what have I earned, but what can I return. After decades of building, learning, failing, and innovating, one thing has become crystal clear. The real measure of success isn't in net worth, it's in net impact. There's a fundamental misunderstanding in the way we think about wealth. For too long, it has been treated like a scorecard, something you accumulate to prove your success, to rise in rankings, to measure yourself against others. But if there's one thing experience teaches over time, it's that wealth isn't the destination. It's not even the journey, it's a tool, nothing more and nothing less. The question then is how you use it. When I first started out, wealth was a byproduct of solving problems. The real excitement was never about the balance sheet. It was about building something useful, something that people could benefit from. Money came as a result of that effort, not the purpose of it. And yet, somewhere along the way, the world around you begins to change. People pay more attention to the commas in your net worth than to the impact of your work. And if you're not careful, you start to believe the hype. But wealth, when hoarded or flaunted, does very little. A pile of money sitting in a bank account or locked into assets isn't building schools. It's not curing diseases. It's not educating girls or feeding children or preparing the planet for a cleaner future. It's just sitting there, static, quiet, waiting. That's where the mindset shift is required. When you start to see wealth as a tool, a lever, a resource, an engine, you begin to ask entirely different questions. Not how much do I have, but what can this do? Not what can I buy, but what can I build? The math changes, the purpose deepens, the outcomes multiply. With just a fraction of what exists today in private hands, we could solve some of humanity's most pressing challenges. Not theoretically, not someday, tangibly, right now. Diseases that have plagued families for generations could be eradicated. Entire educational systems could be transformed. Communities without access to power or clean water could leapfrog into a healthier, more resilient future. And the fascinating part is, many of the solutions already exist. What's missing isn't innovation, it's access, scale, and the will to act. The way I see it, having wealth comes with responsibility, not just moral, but mathematical. A dollar spent strategically in the right place can yield exponential returns, and not just financial ones, human ones. A farmer in sub-Saharan Africa who gets access to improved seeds and reliable market data doesn't just increase crop yield. He increases stability for his family. His children are more likely to attend school. His community is less vulnerable to hunger. One tool unlocks a chain reaction. One solution multiplies. Of course, using wealth in this way takes patience. It's not about quick wins. It's not about quarterly returns or meteor recognition. It's slow, often invisible, but it's real and it lasts. The work is harder to measure because it's measured in futures, not figures. But that's exactly why it matters so much. There will always be things money can't solve. We can't buy our way out of every crisis, but we can invest in the systems, people, and ideas that give us a better shot. We can fund science that gets ahead of the next pandemic. We can support educators and reformers who understand what kids really need. We can build the bridges between potential and opportunity. And here's something that often gets overlooked. Wealth doesn't diminish when it's used for good. It grows, just not always in the ways society tells us to value. It grows in trust, in hope, in the stability of a better tomorrow. It grows in stronger communities, healthier generations, and smarter global systems. That's the return, that's the legacy, not the figure in a headline, but the ripple effect of action. So no, wealth is not a trophy. It's not something to put on a shelf and admire. It's not proof of superiority. It's a means to an end, and the end should always be measured in lives improved, in problems solved, in hope delivered where it was running out. Because when you have the power to do something meaningful and you choose not to, that's not neutrality. That's a decision, and it's the wrong one. The right decision is to use the tool carefully, strategically, boldly, and to keep asking over and over, what else can this do? There's a tendency, especially in policy circles and global development discussions, to talk about Africa as if it's always on the horizon, as if it's some distant opportunity, important but not urgent, emerging but not quite here yet. That framing isn't just outdated, it's wrong. It misses the point entirely. Africa isn't the next frontier, it's the now, it's the present, and it holds one of the most important keys to the future of the world. Start with the demographics. Africa is home to the youngest population on the planet. More than 60% of its people are under the age of 25. That's not just a statistic. That's a tidal wave of energy, creativity, ambition, and potential. These are young minds growing up digitally connected, globally aware, and eager to solve real problems. They're not waiting for permission or instruction. They're already building, coding, organizing, learning. Leading, what's needed isn't to lead for them, it's to clear the path, to fund the ideas, to create the systems that give them the chance to do what they're already ready to do. And in a world aging rapidly in many regions, the youthfulness of Africa isn't just an advantage for the continent, it's an advantage for humanity, but it's not just about population. It's about perspective. Africa is uniquely positioned to rethink systems, leapfrog legacy infrastructure, and apply innovation in ways other parts of the world can't, because in many cases, the absence of entrenched, outdated systems opens the door to smarter, faster solutions. Take digital banking. In some parts of Africa, mobile money platforms are years ahead of what's typical in much wealthier countries. In areas where traditional banking never reached, people are conducting transactions, saving, borrowing, and investing, all from their phones. This isn't about catching up. It's about setting the pace. The same thing is happening in energy, with vast potential for solar and wind, and without a heavy dependence on fossil fuel infrastructure. Africa can model what a clean energy transition looks like when it's built from the ground up, not retrofitted from the top down. In agriculture, African researchers are developing climate resilient crops adapted to local conditions, feeding communities and building food security in the face of a warming planet. In healthcare, scientists and frontline workers across the continent are solving for diseases with precision and urgency, leading innovations in diagnostics, delivery, and data. None of this is speculative, it's happening now, and yet the investments and the attention often lag behind. That has to change. The global economy isn't a closed loop that can keep recycling its energy within a few major markets. It depends on new engines, new regions with the capacity to drive progress. Africa is one of those engines, but to fire on all cylinders, it needs more than headlines. It needs infrastructure, education, internet access, broadband penetration, reliable energy, supply chains that work, healthcare systems that reach rural areas, and research institutions that can train the next generation of problem solvers. What's at stake isn't just Africa's success. It's our shared stability. A resilient, thriving Africa contributes to global food systems, global health security, global innovation pipelines, and climate resilience. When children in African nations grow up healthy, educated, and empowered, they don't just contribute locally, they shape the future globally. And here's an important point that can't be overstated. This isn't about rescue. It's not about aid in the traditional sense. It's about partnership, collaboration, respect, listening to local expertise, trusting those who know their communities best. The most effective solutions come from the ground up. not from top-down models flown in from far away. Investment isn't just about dollars, it's about dignity. Africa doesn't need to be convinced of its potential. It already knows. The real challenge is making sure the rest of the world sees clearly what's unfolding and steps up accordingly. The narrative needs to shift from pity to partnership, from delay to urgency, from someday to now, because the truth is, Africa is not waiting. It's moving, innovating, building, and anyone who overlooks it today will find themselves catching up tomorrow. The wisest move isn't to ask whether Africa will shape the future. The question is, will we help accelerate that future or slow it down with inaction? This moment offers a choice. Engage, invest, collaborate, or miss the opportunity to be part of something transformative. Africa isn't just part of the future story. It is the story right now. The rest of the world just needs to turn the page and catch up. Solving big problems isn't about small gestures. It's not about tweaking around the edges or making things slightly more efficient. When you're facing something massive, something that affects millions of lives or threatens future generations, you can't afford to be cautious. You can't inch forward and hope for the best. The scale of the solution has to match the scale of the problem, and that means making bold, often uncomfortable decisions. There's a natural resistance to this kind of thinking. Most systems are designed for risk avoidance, not transformation. Institutions, whether in government, business, or philanthropy, tend to reward predictability. The question that gets asked in the room isn't what could go right, but what could go wrong. That mindset makes sense if your goal is to maintain the status quo, but if your goal is to end a disease, revolutionize education, or fight climate change, then you need a different approach. You need to take risks. You need to commit resources without the guarantee of immediate success. You need to act before the problem becomes catastrophic. This kind of decision-making isn't reckless. It's calculated, but it's not safe. It requires being okay with criticism. It requires failing sometimes and learning quickly. And it requires understanding that inaction is often the bigger risk. Waiting for perfect information or universal consensus or just the right political moment usually means doing too little, too late. There are countless examples. Take vaccines. The idea of investing billions into vaccines for diseases that primarily affect low-income countries with no profit incentive didn't make a lot of business sense, but it made global sense. It made moral sense, and over time it also made scientific sense, because what we learn in the process about immune systems, delivery logistics, community health infrastructure, comes back to benefit everyone. Or take climate innovation, the path to a zero carbon future won't be paved with incremental changes alone. You don't decarbonize the global economy by switching light bulbs. You do it by reimagining how we make steel, how we power buildings, how we grow food, how we store energy. That means investing in ideas that might fail, technologies that aren't yet proven. It means funding scientists, startups, and thinkers who are trying things nobody else is willing to try, because the consequences of doing nothing are far worse. Bold decisions are often misunderstood. They're painted as risky or idealistic, but real boldness is rooted in data. It's about studying the problem in depth, understanding the leverage points, and then acting at scale. It's not about being dramatic, it's about being effective. And the truth is, most of the world's hardest problems aren't unsolvable. They're just underprioritized. Big problems persist not because we lack ideas, but because we lack alignment. We lack the will to allocate the time, talent, and resources required to solve them. In many cases, the solutions are already out there. They just haven't been scaled, or they've been siloed, or they've been starved of funding. Changing that reality doesn't happen through press releases or awareness campaigns. It happens through bold choices, bold investments, and bold leadership. Of course, being bold doesn't mean being blind. It means being willing to learn in public, to test ideas in the real world, improve them, and share results, good and bad. It means building feedback loops that make systems smarter over time. That's how progress actually works. You don't get everything right from the start, but you move forward anyway. You adjust, you grow, you commit to the long game, and that long game matters. Because the problems we're facing aren't going away. Whether it's pandemic preparedness, extreme poverty, education inequality, or climate disruption, these challenges won't be solved by doing the minimum. They won't be solved by half measures. They will be solved by people, individuals, institutions, and networks who are willing to think big and act boldly. So the choice is simple, really. Continue managing decline or start building progress. Keep asking for guarantees or begin making commitments. The future depends on the decisions made now, and the best ones won't be the easiest, they'll be the boldest. Innovation isn't a luxury reserved for a few elite labs or the wealthiest cities. It doesn't belong only to places with established universities or billion-dollar tech hubs. Innovation is a universal human trait. It's a natural response to challenge, an expression of creativity, and a catalyst for progress. The problem isn't that innovation doesn't exist everywhere, it's that we don't always recognize or support it where it actually happens. Too often, innovation gets associated with high-end technology, Silicon Valley startups, or well-funded research centers. But if you look closer, you'll see brilliant problem solving happening in unexpected places, in small villages, remote communities, and among people who have never stepped foot in a formal classroom. These are the people who live with the problems every day. They have first-hand knowledge of what works and what doesn't, and they are constantly experimenting and adapting to survive and thrive. What holds back many of these innovations isn't a lack of ideas, but a lack of resources, networks, and platforms to scale. When innovation is confined to a few privileged pockets, the rest of the world misses out on solutions that are not only ingenious, but often more relevant and sustainable. Local innovators understand the nuances of their environment better than anyone else. They know how to design technology or systems that fit local needs and cultures, which makes their solutions more effective and easier to adopt. If we want to solve global problems, whether it's in health, agriculture, education, or energy, we need to democratize innovation. That means investing in the people and places where change is most urgently needed, not just where it's easiest to implement. It means building infrastructure that supports research and development in emerging regions. It means fostering connections between local innovators and global knowledge networks, so ideas can flow in both directions. There's an important multiplier effect here. When you empower local innovation, you don't just solve one problem. You create jobs, build skills, and spark entrepreneurship. You create ecosystems where creativity can flourish and where young people see a future worth investing in. These ecosystems become self-reinforcing, growing stronger with each success and learning from each setback. Take agriculture, for example. In many parts of the world, farmers are developing new techniques to improve yields, adapt to changing climate conditions, and reduce environmental impact. They are experimenting with drought-resistant crops, integrated pest management, and mobile technologies that provide real-time market and weather information. These innovations are grounded in local knowledge and are tailored to the specific challenges those farmers face every day. Supporting these innovations with research, funding, and training can dramatically improve food security and rural livelihoods. In healthcare, too, innovation is happening outside of traditional research hospitals. Community health workers are using mobile apps to track patient data, diagnose diseases, and deliver treatments in places where doctors and clinics are scarce. This kind of grassroots innovation is critical for reaching underserved populations and for building health systems that are resilient and responsive. Innovation also means rethinking old models. Sometimes the best new ideas come from questioning assumptions that have long been taken for granted. For instance, traditional education systems are often rigid and standardized, yet children learn in very different ways. Innovative approaches that combine technology, local culture, and personalized learning can transform education and make it more inclusive and effective. Of course, democratizing innovation isn't just about throwing money at the problem. It requires listening, partnership, and humility. It means recognizing that solutions from the global south can inform and improve solutions in the global north. It means challenging the outdated notion that innovation flows only one way, from rich to poor. Ideas born in a small village can scale globally and solve problems everywhere. The world's biggest challenges, climate change, pandemics, inequality, demand solutions from every corner. No one place has a monopoly on good ideas. The diversity of perspectives and experiences only strengthens our collective ability to innovate. When innovation belongs everywhere, it belongs to all of us. So, the imperative is clear. We must invest in infrastructure, education, and connectivity that enable innovation to flourish in every community. We must support local inventors, researchers, and entrepreneurs with the tools and resources they need to turn ideas into impact, and we must build global partnerships that bridge gaps in knowledge and opportunity. Innovation is not confined by geography or economics. It's defined by curiosity, resilience, and the determination to improve lives. If we recognize, nurture innovation wherever it exists, we unlock potential that benefits everyone. The future belongs to those who create it, and innovation is the key to creating a future that's better, fairer, and more sustainable for all. Legacy is often talked about as something left behind after you're gone, a monument, a sum of money, a name etched in history. But that way of thinking misses the real power of legacy. True legacy isn't about what sits on a shelf or is remembered in stories. It's about what you create today that shapes the world of tomorrow. Legacy is what you leave ahead, an impact that continues to grow, evolve, and empower long after you're no longer there to see it. When you focus on legacy as something forward, looking, it changes your perspective on responsibility and action. It's not enough to accumulate wealth or accomplishments for their own sake. The question becomes, how are these resources and achievements being used to build a better future? How will they affect people who don't yet have a voice or a platform? How will they influence systems, communities, and opportunities for generations to come? Building a legacy that matters means investing in things with lasting value, not just material assets, but human potential, ideas, and institutions. It means recognizing that the challenges we face, whether in health, education, climate, or equity, require solutions that outlive any one individual. The work we do today is a foundation. The innovations we support are tools. The opportunities we create are seeds planted in fertile ground. Legacy is also about humility. It requires acknowledging that no single person or effort can solve the world's problems alone. Progress is a collective endeavor built on collaboration and shared vision. So a legacy isn't about individual glory. It's about the communities and systems you help strengthen. It's about empowering others to continue the work, to dream bigger, and to innovate further. One of the most powerful forms of legacy is education. When you invest in learning and knowledge, you give people tools to change their own lives and communities. Education creates a multiplier effect: knowledge passed down, skills taught, ideas sparked. It doesn't just improve one generation, it changes the trajectory of many. A legacy of education builds resilience and opportunity far beyond any single intervention. Health is another critical dimension of legacy. Supporting medical research, public health infrastructure, and access to care creates a ripple effect of well-being. When diseases are prevented or treated effectively, communities grow stronger, children stay in school, economies become more productive, people have the chance to live fuller, more vibrant lives. These aren't just short-term gains, they're investments in the future fabric of society. Sustainability is a legacy that cannot be overlooked. The choices we make today about how we use natural resources, how we manage Energy, how we protect the environment will define the world future generations inherit. Legacy means taking responsibility for the planet, not as a passive caretaker, but as an active steward. It means supporting technologies and policies that reduce harm and restore balance. It means thinking beyond immediate convenience or profit to long-term survival and prosperity. Importantly, legacy is personal as well as systemic. It's reflected in the values you embody, the example you set, and the relationships you nurture. Integrity, curiosity, compassion, and perseverance. These are qualities that shape how others see the world and what they believe is possible. The character you build and share becomes part of your legacy in ways that outlast any financial or material achievement. Many people assume legacy is something to worry about at the end of life, but the reality is that it's built every day. Every decision, every investment of time and resources, every choice to help or empower others contributes to that future impact. Legacy is active, not passive. It demands intention and purpose. And while legacy is about what you leave ahead, it's also about what you do now. Future doesn't arrive by chance. It's created by the actions of today. You can't control everything that happens after you're gone, but you can influence the direction. You can make sure the groundwork is solid, the goals clear, and the momentum sustained. One of the most meaningful legacies is creating opportunities for others to lead. It's about mentorship, about opening doors, about trusting the next generation with responsibility and authority. When you enable others to innovate, to make decisions, to learn from mistakes, you're building a living legacy, a network of people and ideas that will keep evolving and adapting. At its core, legacy is a form of optimism. It's a belief that the future can be better, that progress is possible, and that each of us has a role to play in shaping what comes next. It's an acknowledgement that time moves forward, and with it, the chance to leave a positive mark. So when you think about legacy, don't just look backward, look forward. Think about the structures you help build, the lives you touch, the systems you improve. Legacy is what you leave ahead, a living, breathing influence that shapes a better world long after you've taken your final bow. That's the kind of legacy worth working for, because it's the legacy that truly lasts. So here's the decision. Take the fortune built on innovation and aim it where the return is measured not in profit, but in lives uplifted. This isn't about legacy. It's about what's left for others to build on, and the best time to do it is now.